There is a moment, and if you have ever lived it, you know exactly what I mean, when everything you built, everything you loved, everything you believed was permanent, collapses in a single breath. Not slowly, not with warning, just gone. The job you sacrificed your 20s for, the relationship you thought was your forever, the version of yourself you had carefully constructed over years of pain and healing and hope, all of it, reduced to rubble in what feels like a single cruel second. And in that moment, the world does not stop. The sun still rises, people still laugh in restaurants, traffic still moves, and you are standing in the middle of it all, completely hollow, wondering how everyone else is still breathing normally when your lungs have forgotten how to work. That feeling, that unbearable, suffocating silence inside a loud world, is not weakness. It is not a sign that you are broken beyond repair. It is not evidence that life has permanently turned its back on you. It is, in fact, the very beginning of one of the most profound journeys a human soul can take. It is the beginning of your emotional detox. Most people misunderstand what collapse means. They see it as an ending. They wear it like a shame, hiding the wreckage behind forced smiles and rehearsed answers to the question, "How are you doing?" They push the grief down into the basement of their chest and lock the door, believing that if they never look at it, it will eventually dissolve on its own. But grief does not dissolve in the dark. Pain does not evaporate simply because you refuse to acknowledge it. It ferments. It grows teeth. It finds ways to bleed into every corner of your life, into your sleep, into your relationships, into the quiet moments when you are alone with nothing but your own thoughts and the weight of everything you are pretending not to feel. The emotional detox after life collapse is not a luxury. It is not something reserved for people with time and money and the privilege of processing. It is a survival necessity. It is the difference between a person who rebuilds and a person who simply rearranges the rubble and calls it a new life. Right now, wherever you are watching this, whatever brought you to this video today, I want you to understand one foundational truth before we go any further together. You are not here by accident. Something in you, something ancient and wise and still fighting, led you to this moment because it knows what your conscious mind is still afraid to admit, that you are ready, not to forget, not to pretend, but to feel, fully and finally, everything you have been carrying alone in the dark. And that readiness, no matter how terrifying it feels, is the bravest thing about you. Here is where it gets difficult, and I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to say is the part most people run from, the part that separates those who truly heal from those who only perform healing for the comfort of the people around them. The suspense of grief is not in not knowing whether you will survive it. Deep down, some quiet part of you already knows you will survive. The real suspense, the kind that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. staring at a ceiling that offers no answers, is not knowing who you will be on the other side of it. Because when life collapses, it does not just take your circumstances. It takes your identity. It dismantles the story you have been telling yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and where you are going. And standing at the edge of that unknown, being asked to walk forward without a map, without a guarantee, without even a clear sense of self to carry with you, that is the most terrifying human experience there is. Most people, when they reach this edge, do one of two things. They either rush, they throw themselves into distraction, into busyness, into new relationships, or new cities, or new versions of the same old patterns, desperate to feel solid ground beneath their feet again, before they have done the necessary work of understanding why the ground collapsed in the first place. Or they freeze. They become so overwhelmed by the enormity of what they are feeling that they simply stop moving altogether, convinced that the pain is too large to survive, too complex to untangle, too deep to ever reach the bottom of. Both responses are understandable. Both responses are human. But both responses, if left unchecked, will keep you circling the same wound for years without ever actually healing it. This is precisely why the wisdom of someone like Dr. Grandpa Henry resonates so deeply with those who have walked through real loss. His teachings remind us that emotional processing is not about reaching a destination of painlessness. It is about developing the capacity to sit with your pain long enough to understand what it is trying to teach you. Because your grief is not your enemy. Your grief is a messenger. It is carrying information about what mattered to you, about where your boundaries were violated, about what your soul genuinely needs in order to feel whole again. And when you silence that messenger before it has delivered its full message, you do not get peace. You get numbness dressed up as peace, which is one of the most dangerous conditions a human being can live in. The emotional detox asks you to do the hardest thing. It asks you to open the door to the basement of your chest, to walk down those stairs in the dark, to sit with everything you locked away and say, out loud or in silence, I see you. I am no longer afraid of you. I am here, and I am finally ready to listen to what you have been trying to tell me all along. So how do you actually do it? How do you open that door without being destroyed by what is behind it? How do you feel? Everything you have been avoiding without losing yourself completely in the feeling. This is where the practice begins. Not the theory, not the philosophy, the actual, daily, moment-by-moment practice of emotional detox after life collapse. And the first thing you must understand is that emotional release is not a single dramatic moment of catharsis. It is not one good cry that washes everything clean. It is not a single therapy session or a single journal entry or a single conversation with someone you trust. It is a process. It is a commitment. It is choosing, every single day, to be honest with yourself about what you are carrying, even when honesty is uncomfortable, even when it is inconvenient, even when the people around you would prefer the version of you that pretends to be fine. The grief stages that mental health research has mapped out for us are not a straight line. You will not move neatly from denial into anger, into bargaining, into depression, into acceptance like chapters in a book. You will move back and forth. You will think you have reached acceptance, and then wake up the next morning, drowning in grief that feels as fresh as the first day. And that is not failure. That is not regression. That is simply the non-linear, deeply human nature of genuine emotional healing. Give yourself the permission to move without a schedule. Give yourself the grace to not be further along than you actually are. One of the most powerful, healthy emotional detox practices you can begin today, right now, before this video ends, is the practice of emotional naming. Not suppressing what you feel, not dramatizing what you feel, simply naming it with precision and honesty. Not just saying I feel bad, but sitting quietly enough to identify I feel abandoned, I feel humiliated, I feel terrified of starting over, I feel grief not just for what I lost, but for the future I had imagined that will now never exist. That level of emotional precision is not self-pity, it is self-knowledge. And self-knowledge is the foundation upon which every genuine recovery is built. The second practice is movement. Not exercise as punishment or distraction, but intentional physical movement as a way of releasing what the body has stored. Because your body keeps the score of every wound you have ever tried to outthink. The tension in your shoulders, the tightness in your chest, the exhaustion that sleep never fully cures, these are not physical problems. They are emotional memories living in physical form. Walk. Breathe deeply and deliberately. Stretch with intention. Let your body participate in the healing your mind is trying to do alone. And the third practice is radical acceptance. Not acceptance that what happened was acceptable. Not forgiveness on a timeline that someone else set for you, but the quiet, powerful recognition that this collapse happened, that it is now part of your story, and that your story is not over. That the most important chapters of your life are not the ones written in your seasons of comfort and certainty, but the ones written in the aftermath of your greatest losses, when you chose, despite everything, to keep going. You are in one of those chapters right now, and the fact that you are here, still seeking, still searching, still willing to learn and feel and grow, that is not a small thing. That is everything. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.